So back in 2012, I made a career transition. I went from retail sales, which was cell phones. I was selling AT&T cell phones, to putting on one of those guys, trying out my hand at telesales. And so the transition went retail, where you're face-to-face, to telephone, where you're not face-to-face. The company was here in the Triangle. We were selling auto repair websites. And so I was cold calling all over North America, trying to sell auto mechanics websites. And as you might know, auto mechanics are a really, really gentle bunch on the phone. So I learned two main things. I learned a lot of things. But the two main things that I learned is if you're from North Carolina and you're selling to someone in New Jersey over the phone, you should talk faster. That's point number one. I couldn't make it like 30 seconds into the call, they were hanging up on me. It was just immediate. I think I'm still over the state of New Jersey. And so that was point number one. Point number two is, actually I only learned that in retrospect, and that was, so they hired me, I'll get to the point, but they hired me on November the 26th of 2012. And then 53 working days later, on February the 18th of 2013, at about 3:30 p.m., they called me into the office, or the conference room, and we had this uncomfortable, it's not you, it's me, sorry things didn't work out, hope your kids find someplace nice to eat, conversation with the management. And as a part of that exit interview, which is a really kind way of describing that conversation, I was just asking, well, what happened? Why am I being let go of this sales career that I had planned? And he said, well, as a part of the interview process, we did, this comprehensive evaluation of you, and they rank you on all sorts of personality profiles and things like that. And one of them is empathy. Empathy is the ability to put yourself into someone else's shoes, and to not just notice that they have emotions, but to feel those emotions with them. Sympathy would be where you're able to say, that person looks angry. I've felt angry before, and you're noticing. But empathy is the ability to feel that anger with the other person. So they rank you, for the purposes, he told me, for the purposes of this evaluation to get a job as a sales rep. They rank you from 0 to 100%. 0, I guess, being like psychopath, no ability at all to empathize with anyone ever. And 100% being, psychotherapist, excellent ability to put yourself in other people's shoes. So on a scale from 0 to 100, I got a 2. So slightly higher than psychopath, but not much. And so he said that was, as they listened to my recorded calls, as I was making calls trying to sell websites, I had very little empathy. And first of all, I'd like a recount, because I don't think I'm quite that bad. I must have misunderstood the questions or something. But second of all, that was the reason that he was letting me go. And so I tell you all of that whole story, to tell you that my name is Ben, and I'm not great at empathy. But I think the point of my talk, the sub-point of my talk, is that empathy equals money. And so if you want to generate money from plugins or from themes or from anything else on the free WordPress.org repository, it's going to take empathy. And so I just told you I'm really, really bad at it, and now I'm going to tell you how you can do it. Because I think, honestly, for me, it's been seeing that knowledge that I have this massive blind spot. It's been helpful in lots of areas, my marriage and all of that, to see that I don't have the ability to put myself in other people's shoes. And so I've had to give myself some training wheels in that area, and it's led to pretty good, I'd say, return on investment. So first, a little bit about me. That's my wife. I convinced her to marry me before she knew any better in 2006, and that's my youngest son, Theodore. And I couldn't find a picture where I had my oldest son and my youngest son and my wife all making flattering faces, so I chose to separate it out into two different ones. But there's Jacqueline and Theo, and then on the next one, we've got Theo and Benjamin. We were taking a trip by train, and you have to take your car seat with you so that when you get off the train, you have a car seat. And they thought it would be cool to, there in the train station in Charlotte, try out their car seats on the bench, and then Google did the rest with the whole making it into a GIF. So that's my family. Again, I'm a dad of two, husband of one, homeschool dad, a church musician, and a freelance WordPress developer. And so I've got 2 plugins in the .org repo. One of them, again, empathy equals money. One of them, it's called Old Post Date Remover. I released it actually right before last year's WordCamp. It was my first plugin. It was a client need. I had somebody that had this great evergreen blog. Like they would write posts about how to make a wine cellar, or how to weatherproof your car. There was very long content. Like it's not going to go bad in 6 months. But they had a big date plastered across the top of their site. And they had ways to tell if it was converting. Each site was converting into, adding visitors or whatever, or adding subscribers. And one particular post about building a wine cellar was doing really bad. And I said, you should take the date off of it because people are reading August 2012 and it's now August of 2014 and they're getting distracted by that. Let's take it off. And they said, no, we don't like taking the date off of the new posts. Is there a way we can take the date off of just the old posts? And so it's a really hacky way, but I hide the CSS and it uses, finds out the post date and the server date and measures the time in between there and hides the date. So anyways, real basic plugin. And so that one I released, again, right before last year's WordCamp. Made a couple of dollars throughout the year. You can see there. In about January, through the support forums, I picked up a guy who was, he was actually local here, and he said, I'm having trouble with my web host. Do you do hosting? I was like, well, no, but I'll try. Yeah, I can figure it out. And so I host my own stuff on DigitalOcean and ServerPilot and all this stuff. So I was like, I can try it. And so we had like a 3-month agreement to see if it worked out from both ends, and it did. And so I now do hosting and backups and maintenance for him. And then I've picked up a number of other little one-time gigs. Again, nothing major. We're not breaking the bank here. Around December of last year, so right after WordCamp of last year, I released a new plugin called Better Click to Tweet. And Better Click to Tweet is, as it says, it puts click to tweet boxes on posts and pages. When I went to find a click to tweet plugin for a different client, I couldn't find one that used the shortcode API. And so I was like, I'll build my own. So I built my own, released that. Now, since then, I've done a lot of iterating to it, adding internationalization and adding lots of features and things like that on the back end. That plugin, all of the revenue that's generated from it has been pretty much one-time stuff. But you see, there have been some big one-time gigs. I attract a whole lot better clients for that one. And 100% of this revenue, all of the money you see represented on this graph here, it came from people that I met in the support forums at wp.org or wordpress.org. And so, and again, I think it's because of empathy. That's my thesis here. It's because I was able to put myself into the shoes of developers, and I'm enough of an outsider developer. I still remember what it's like to not know at all what I'm talking about or what I'm doing. And so I use that knowledge to help me with that. But so today I want to teach you guys how, as developers, you can grow in empathy, which will turn into money. And so first we have to admit that there's a problem, and the problem is that you know things. Specifically, you know lots of things. You're developers for WordPress. In 2007, Chip and Dan Heath released a book called Made to Stick. If you hear nothing else from this talk, hear that you should get that book, Made to Stick, by Chip and Dan Heath. Phenomenal book about what makes certain ideas sticky and certain ideas not sticky. Makes ideas stick around. And so in that book they talk about Elizabeth Newton. Elizabeth Newton in 1990 earned her PhD in psychology from Stanford University, due in part to her research into what they call the curse of knowledge. For that research, she took a group for the experiment and put them into two groups. There were tappers and there were listeners. And they gave the tappers a little slip of paper with a song on it, a popular song, one that everybody in the listener group would know. You know, Happy Birthday to You, or The Star Spangled Banner, or Jingle Bells, or something like that. But they just gave them the title of it on a slip of paper. And they had them tap out the melody on the table. So Jingle Bells would have sounded like and they asked what had them ask the listeners to identify the song. But before they either correctly or incorrectly identified the song, they asked the tappers, what percentage of the listeners do you think is going to get it right? And the listeners on average said, or tappers rather, on average said that the listeners would get it right 50% of the time. What actually happened was the tappers, tapped the song out and the listeners got it right 2% of the time. And so the tappers overestimated by 48% their own ability to correctly tap out these basic songs on the table. And what was going on is you can't not hear the song while you're tapping it on the table. You're hearing jingle bells, jingle all the way. You can't unhear it. You have that knowledge. You can't separate yourself from that knowledge in order to imagine what it would be like to not have that knowledge. And so the listeners, they're smart people, but they don't have that same knowledge. They don't know that information going into it. So that's one thing, the curse of knowledge. The second thing that you know, that maybe you don't know that you know, it's called hindsight bias. And that's the I knew it all along syndrome. So they've shown study after study on this where people, once they know the outcome, and then they look back and try to predict which of these possible other outcomes would come true. If they know the actual outcome, they're predisposed to choose that one every time, no matter how likely they think the other outcomes would be. So that's after the election, they say, did you know in October that Obama was going to win? And they say, well, yeah, we saw these things pointing to it, and there's a hindsight bias. And so no matter what, now that you know something, how something ends, the end of the story, you're predisposed to try to track the trajectory to that end. And so those are your two curses that you got to deal with. You've got the hindsight bias, where the knew it all along syndrome, and you've got the curse of knowledge. And so, again, why is this important? Because you know things. You're a developer. You know, for example, that when you see the word WordPress written, the P is capitalized. You know these things. You can't unknow this thing. If you're a little bit more savvy, you know that there's a function that scrapes through the whole back end, anything that's a database that's in the database that is shown on the front in the title or the text of WordPress, and it scrapes through there and capitalizes the P for you. And if you're even a little bit more savvy, you know that we had to violate the code standards in order to get that awesome function name, capital P, dang it. And so you know things, you know lots of things when it comes to WordPress. And so my plea to you is that as we look to try to make money off of plugins, try to make money off of the free things that are out there, you're going to need to recognize that you've got knowledge that your users don't have. And in order to put yourself into those users' shoes and feel what they feel so that you can make money, it's going to take you recognizing your bias, recognizing what's going on in your brain. Again, as the prominent WordPress philosopher once said, empathy equals money. That was Ben Meredith at WordCamp Raleigh 2015. It was amazing. It's a great talk. So we got to recognize that there's something, again, standing in between us and money. And that's our own inability to empathize with our users. So let's beware of the fence. There's a fence in this image between us and the green pastures of revenue. And so the first thing that I've noticed as a developer, as I've been interacting with people on the support forums, is that they all think that I am WordPress. Like, I am WordPress because I made this plugin that hides the date via CSS, and I'm making exactly $0 a month off of it. When they submit a support request and I respond, I am WordPress. And so that's the reality that we're dealing with, is that they think that we're WordPress. And in fact, we are kind of WordPress. That's the way WordPress works. That's the way open source software works. And so you got to recognize they don't know who Automatic is. They don't know the WordPress Foundation. They don't know Audrey Capital. They don't know all of the stuff that goes into WordPress. And so we got we got to treat them that way. And for me, I'll share with you in the next few slides kind of the steps that I've made to put myself into those users' shoes, because again, I'm not great at empathy. I'm not great at all at it. My first step when I'm doing WordPress support in the free support forums is that I've installed a filter. This little blue box right here is not a great place for a rough draft. Now, full disclosure, I did go in with DevTools and modify everything on this image except for that poor guy's avatar, and he gave somebody 1-star review. So that's the only thing that I left alone. I changed his username, I changed the things that he said, I changed his awesome grammar in his post title. I changed all of that. So if you know that guy, he didn't really say that. And that's not his name. Thorough Reviews 1, 2, 3. But this, when you get a 1-star review, this is not your rough draft zone. At least it's not for me. Rough drafts happen in Google Docs because my rough drafts are rough drafts where I insult family and I don't keep it nice. And so I have to tell myself, let's respond over here and let it sit. And for me, my personal rule is on a negative review or a negative support, somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, support review, I give it at least 24 hours before anything is said publicly back from me, because again, I'm not great at empathy, and maybe he's having a really bad day. I got to put myself into his shoes. But my point here is, as you respond, how you respond is important. Even to the 1-star reviews, how you respond is important, because you need to give your users a face, not just a little avatar face, but give them a face. On second thought, you shouldn't give your users a face because sometimes your users are trolls and they should be treated like trolls. And you should instead, thank you. My username is Ben UNC. But you need to give your audience a face. And so there's a difference between your users and your audience. The user may or may not be a troll. That's up for debate. Sometimes the user has a legitimate gripe with you or whatever, but your audience is always who you need to give a face to. And so the person, for me, I've noticed a theme. As I have developed plugins or, gone on the support forums and people often start their support requests with, hey Ben, I'm having trouble with da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know these people. How do they know my name? It's just the WordPress.org support forums, right? Not right. Again, I'm WordPress, for one. And for two, they go in and they read down the forums and they say, this guy named Ben Meredith has responded to every single support ticket for this plugin. And they put it all together and they go, okay, if I call him Ben, he'll be nicer. So those people are your audience. And you need to give those people a face. It might help to go spend some time in the beginner track over here, meet some of those people and give them that face. I'll show you the face that I use. That is Jesse Raymond Meredith Jr. My dad is Jesse Raymond Meredith III, so that's my grandfather. I didn't know him with that face. That's before me by a few years. But this was a man who was an illustrator for General Electric. Man, I'm getting emotional talking about my grandpa. But and he's the type of guy that he didn't tell a lie, even if it cost him $1,000. He's not going to lie to you. And so as I'm doing my plugin support, and somebody comes up with this troll comment, I act like this man is sitting over my shoulder, looking at me. Let me tell you a story about him. Very early on in his career, he was, again, an illustrator for General Electric. And so that he drew the pictures that went in support manuals for, at the time, it was right after World War II and during World War II, he drew the pictures for like how to load a tank. Like he was helping military, how to load the armor, the artillery onto a tank or whatever, different military apparatus. And he was the one that actually drew the pictures that went in the thing. Well, very early on in his career, he got audited by the IRS. And so they call him in and he has to go and take this is before you had personal computers and a printer in your house where you could print out all your records and take them down there, or now I guess you could probably get on email or fax or something. He had to go figure out a way to prove all of his income and expenses and take 4 hours out of his day and go down to the IRS office and sit across the table from somebody and show them, no, here's what I spent and here's the taxes I paid. And again, this wasn't a man that cheated on his income taxes. It's just one of those things where you get audited. I don't know if you know how the IRS works, but once you get on that red flag list, especially back then, you just kind of stayed on it. And so every single year for like 20 years, he was on this red flag list where they would call him in and he had to pack up all his papers in a briefcase and go down to the IRS office and sit there and hear again that they think that he's not paying his taxes. And you know how he responded? Every single year, he told me this story, I remember it. He said, I had to be nice to him because he's just doing his job. And so that's the face, again, that I have as I'm responding to the troll on the .org forums that doesn't know at all what they're talking about. Because I'll tell you, if I had said, read the effing manual to someone with that man sitting with me, he'd have smacked me in the mouth. And so it's not an acceptable response to say to somebody, hey, the FAQ, I've got all of the answers are in the FAQ, that answer, the same question that you get 4,000 times. You all get the same answer, the same questions every single time. Jesse Raymond Meredith Jr. would not have been okay with me not treating that other person on the other end of the computer as a human. And so that's my second point. So first of all, I install a filter. Not a great place for rough drafts on the actual forums itself. Secondly, I give my audience, but not my users, necessarily a face. And then thirdly, I don't respond after midnight. Tangentially related, I don't respond after alcohol. Because alcohol impairs judgment and spelling, apparently. Yeah, there you go. It took you a little bit, but you're all right. It's okay. And so again, it just doesn't do any good to respond after midnight. A wise man once told me nothing good happens after midnight. So that's, again, my rule. Some developers work great after midnight and they think very clearly and they're very kind and generous after midnight. That is not me. I wait till the morning, especially for the negative reviews. It's fine. It's probably okay to respond to the positive reviews after midnight. And so those are my three sort of tripwires I've put in between me and myself, because I'm not great at empathy. And empathy equals money. And so I have to stop myself from doing the things that are going to prevent me from responding empathetically to my users. And the last thing I'll say is you should support your plugin or don't support your plugin. But whichever you choose, do that. And do it really well, because nobody likes halfway supported things. It's obvious to everyone that you stopped. So, and I mean, there's great plugins out there, free plugins that'll have in the README, they'll say, we don't have time to support this plugin, so sorry. That's fine. What I'm objecting to is the people that would say, respond in the forums, and then they don't ever check the forums. They don't ever respond. Because again, you are WordPress as a developer. You are the community, and so I think it's important for us to treat our users with that respect and just be clear. Put it everywhere, because users don't always read. Put it on the FAQ section that you don't respond to support tickets. Put it on the README that you don't respond to support tickets. Put it as your Twitter bio that you don't respond to support tickets. Just be honest that you don't respond if you don't respond to support tickets. And so, because that'll help you to do that. But I personally don't think I could have made any money off of my free plugins if I had not supported them on the forums. And so, and I've just gone out of my way, bent over backwards to just respond like as though my grandpa's sitting right there with me, and B, that they are busy people that don't have time to read through all of my finely crafted, frequently asked questions sections. They're people that are busy, and so I need to treat them like that. So that's all I've got. on how to develop revenue from free plugins, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And I finished extremely early.
Have you figured out any kind of understanding of the actual cost of supporting the plugin?
Yeah, a lot. Well, I'm just a freelance guy, and so I mean, there's billable hours that I do for some clients, and not billable hours. And so, for me, my philosophy is just to give generously as I'm able. Obviously, I'm not going to take away from my family, and I'm going to create good boundaries around that and say, I don't when I get home and I turn off the computer, I'm off. And when I coach my kids' soccer team, I'm not going to be answering support tickets and insane 2-hour turnarounds and stuff like that. But as much as I'm able, and I think that just depending on who you are, as much as the bandwidth that you have in your life or business to be able to do that, I think it'll help to just do that. But yeah, as far as what the actual cost is, it's significant. I mean, I spend a lot of time to get that $5,000 that you saw in revenue on that slide early on in the presentation. It's not. If I broke it down hourly, I would probably cry again. I've already cried once during this presentation, but I would probably cry again if I broke it down hourly. So that's a great question, though. Other questions?
I understand what you're saying, but I guess could you give like a specific example of, I guess you just reply to something and then someone's like, hey, do you have time to do this, or how does that?
That's an excellent question. In my mind, there's things that I will do for free and things that I will say my magic line, which is, this falls outside of the scope of free support for my plugin. Thank you so much. And so that often triggers them to go, oh, well, how much would it cost to do this? And so for me, like, my one plugin is Better Click to Tweet, and I put in a way to completely hijack the CSS and put in your own style sheet that'll completely style the boxes on the front end of the site. I get a ton of requests to do that, and I'm not going to style your site for you for free. And I'll say that to them, like, hey, I've made a tutorial on how to style the site, and said, if you know how to use CSS, here's a tutorial on where to put the file and what to name the file so that you can customize the file. But I'm not going to do it for you. And a lot of the revenue that you saw from the Better Click to Tweet plugin was that people saying, hey, can you skin it to look like my blog or whatever. And then the other thing, it's just it kind of takes deciding in advance what are things that I'm going to do for free. And for me, that's always something that benefits everyone. I'll probably do for free and add it as a feature to the plugin and whatever. But something that just benefits this person or their specific case, I'll say, I'd love to help you with that. My rate to do that will be $150. And I don't charge hourly. Because that penalizes being efficient. I've gotten way better at doing things over the years. I'm not going to give you less money or take less money from you for doing the same exact amount of work just because I did it quicker. And so I have an hourly rate in my head for how long something's going to take. And when they say, how much is that? I'm doing the math in my head. That many hours, $250, but I'm not going to ever charge tell them my hourly rate. When people ask, I always respond, I don't charge hourly, I charge by the project. And so, that's my general guideline, though, is something that I can benefit every user of the plugin, I'll probably do for free, unless it's a ton of work and I don't have the time to do it, and then I'll just say, that's on the development roadmap. But if it's something that just benefits that individual user, a lot of times I'll say, I can do that for you, and here's the rate. Other questions?
Do you just post it on WordPress? You don't do any kind of marketing or anything for your plugin?
I have done very little. I mean, I tweet about it and stuff. And also, I don't know if this is like the officially supported thing you're supposed to do, but I go on competitors' support forums. And I answer the questions that they're not answering. And I say, just so you know, I redesigned this plugin and it does it way better and it's over here. You know, and I say it gently. I'm not trying to be rude to that other developer. He's got other products that he's supporting, and he's got a free plugin that he's no longer supporting, very clearly no longer supporting. And so I go over there and do that, and then it's just been word of mouth. And I've got like 6,000 active installs on the Better Click to Tweet plugin in about a year. So, and that again has just been, there's a couple of factors in there. One is I update it very, very regularly, and so I don't know how WordPress's algorithm works on the back end when somebody searches for a support or searches for a plugin, but I suspect that mine shows up earlier on in the search results for plugins because it's updated so much more regularly. And so that's been one thing. And then, yeah, I tweet about it. I take a lot of time on the README file that's on the .org support forum so that it's formatted a little bit. There's bolding and there's links to my website with I created a power user guide because I'm definitely a decisions not options guy. I can't stand plugins that have got the big, 30 options that you can go in there and tweak everything and there's check boxes. Mine has a lot of options, but they're all hidden. And so I made a power user forum or power user guide that shows you how that you can customize the shortcode or whatever to get what you're looking to do out of it. And people, like the click to tweet thing, a lot of people are like, you need to be making your links no follow. And I'm like, I'm not an SEO guy and I don't have time to be an SEO guy. I don't know why I would make anything no follow. And so, but it was pretty easy to implement the change. I just added an extra parameter of no follow equals yes. And then if they put that in the parameter on the back end and they know about that, it makes the link no follow that it activates. And so little things like that I've added over time, and people have started talking about it because they've started using it and they like it. So, other questions?
Selfish question. What's next on the Ben UNC free plugin pipeline?
I don't know. My wife keeps saying, "Don't do free things." So I came and organized a WordCamp and then gave a talk for free. It's good. It's going to be okay. Last night, actually, after the speaker's dinner, she said for the first time, "I think WordPress is a viable career option for you." She met all of the speakers last night and she liked it. So support. She's always been supportive but skeptical. Last night she came around, but yeah, I don't have any real plans other than to keep doing the backups and maintenance stuff. That's been my main source of recurring income, is getting clients that move their hosting to me or move their maintenance and backups and stuff. So don't have any new plugins in the pipeline. Once I come up with a need for one, I'll either go find one or hack something together that does it. Other questions, comments, snide remarks?
Do you use any sort of software to keep track of issues or to keep track of your responses to users? Or anything?
No, I mean, I try to make sure, and if somebody emails me with a support issue, because that happens pretty often, or they'll respond on my website with they'll put it, I took the comment form off of lots of my pages of my website because I just got tired of the threaded comments weren't working well and it just didn't work. And then I would lose track of the thing. So if somebody emails me or comments on an old post or something like that with a support related request, I always explain to them, I'm really bad at remembering to get back with you if you contact me somewhere other than the .org forums. And then once a week, I use the Todoist app, which is just a to-do list app. And once a week, I've got a thing in there that says go check the .org support forums. And so I get the emails from the .org support forums too, but once a week I go and clear all of those to make sure that they're out of there. And I'm not getting a huge amount of support tickets. It's not like I'm getting 30 a week. I've probably averaged 3 or 4 a month.
A quick tip there?
Sure.
When I had one of my plugins was newer and it was completely free, I set up in Trello or in Zapier, you can do parse RSS to Trello. So all the support forums, I would have a board called support, and it would just pop up there every time someone created a support thing in the WordPress.org, and then my contact form went straight to Trello on that plugin's website. So everything kind of got funneled into a Trello board, so I can just be like, oh, it went to the doing column. I can drag it to the done column if I answer the support ticket.
That's great. Yeah,
And it's all free tools.
I need a better workflow for that type of stuff. And if I ever got inundated with a ton of support tickets and I was falling behind on it, I would do that. But so far it's been just manual, remind myself to go check and answer it. I've got one that I answered the middle of last week and told the guy, I got WordCamp coming up. I'm not going to be able to get to this until Monday. Just heads up, And so, but that's been my unsystem, I'll call it.
I wonder, is it a better financial model if you do decide to charge for these things?
Mm-hmm.
Either to A, kind of, have it as a paid plugin,
Mm-hmm.
or B, have a list of, okay, these are all the things you can get if you want to contact me directly, I can customize it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like one is a paid thing versus, it would seem like more people might come to you with the support, from the support angle and say,
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, oh, how much does it cost? And be more willing to do that as opposed to, do I want to pay for something that I don't really know yet? Or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's tons of philosophies out there. There's guys that do the free plugin and then you pay for support, and there's guys that do like Yoast on the Yoast plugin. It says it on the README. It's like support is a premium feature, and so you can have my plugin for free, but if you want my support, you got to go pay for it. And so that I think is a perfectly viable model. I don't have the bandwidth to create a e-commerce site just for the 2 support requests that I'm getting a month at this point. So at some point for me, I got to get some more people coming in that need support. I need to either be worse at developing plugins so that there's more support tickets, or I need to get more users.
When did you start building plugins?
2014. So the old post date remover was October of last year, so about a year, a little over a year. I've been kind of, what they would call like an implementer. I could do lots of the tweaking the theme and the CSS and go in and tweak the PHP and do little stuff like that. But as far as releasing standalone plugins and being able to code from scratch, 2014 is when I started, and so I'm new.
How do you structure your home environment? You said you have kids at home,
Mhm.
Homeschooling. So how do you kind of be like, this is my area and I need to get work done now?
I do it very poorly. Thank you for asking. No, that is a legitimate struggle. I mean, I think you've got to have, first off, I work part-time for my church, and they give me an office full-time, so that's awesome. And so when I really have to get alone and I can have childcare and somebody to watch the kids, I can go there. But when I'm at home, which this is the first year I've taught my kid full-time. I've been the full-time homeschool teacher. It's taken, it depends on the kid. If my youngest is at home, there's no getting work done without getting him a very specific thing to do for these next 20 minutes while I do something. But the oldest, you can say, go play, and I have to go find him, because he just goes off. And so, but they know, they both know that when I've got the headphones on, I'm in my cone of silence, and don't bother daddy. Or if he's on the phone, they'll peek their head around the corner and see me on the phone and be like, oh, he's on a phone call. Hear him say to the other one, he's on a phone call, shh. So I'm doing something right. But yeah, it's a constant balance there. And I think the key is having a separate space that indicates to the rest of the family that I'm in my space now, which I can't, that we have a homeschool classroom, and when I'm in there, I'm teacher. And I'm not dad anymore, and he doesn't get to talk back to me like he does at home. It works out, actually. He actually listens a whole lot better when I'm teacher, so I've started going in there to tell him to do home stuff. And so when I'm at home, or when I'm in the classroom, I'm teacher. When I'm in my bedroom/office, that he knows that he's got the computer, he's at work. And my wife is super supportive. She works full-time, but she's weird hours, and so she's been very helpful too. So lots of communication with the wife is key. Other questions? I almost made it to like 45 minutes.
Do you have any other, besides Made to Stick, do you have other book recommendations?
Anything by Chip and Dan Heath is great. They have, if you're looking at making decisions, they have one called, what is it? I've got a magic 8-ball on my desk that is there. It's branded. There's Decisive. And it's about making decisions. That's Chip and Dan Heath. That's really good stuff. I love the book Do Over by John Acuff. It's a phenomenal book, a career advice style book, and it's hilarious. I like any of his stuff, but Do Over's my favorite. Yeah, I'm big into the self-help stuff. I read all the Who Moved My Cheese and some classics there. QBQ is another great one if you're looking for customer support, the empathy piece. QBQ by John Miller. Stands for Question Behind the Question. And that book, there's story after story in that book, but that really helped me to start. It basically is a personal responsibility book. Instead of saying, why are my users such terrible people, it's how can I make a better plugin so that my users don't ask me the same question. How can I answer how can I do a better job of controlling what I can control and letting them be the ones that control, that they'll do them. I'm not going to make excuses for me anymore. And so QBQ is great. John Miller. Big fan. The questions have gone way off topic. I love it. It's perfect.
Like a super off topic.
Super off topic. Go for it.
So how do you want to grow yourself as a developer? Like what skill sets are you looking to acquire? And how do you think you're going to get there?
I don't know. Obviously, this time last year I sat in the developer track and it was like, the concepts were just flying over. This year, I've understood everything that I've been, I know what the words mean. I don't necessarily have the ability to do all of the things, but it's been great. And so, yeah, I think just continuing. I discovered somewhere, it was probably right before last year's WordCamp, that I'm not a designer at all. I'm a developer. I don't do great with pictures. If you give me a picture, I do a pretty good job of making it into what you want it to do. And so, yeah, just growing in that. And I love the optimization side of WordPress, just helping people's sites to do better and faster and use less server resources and, getting people onto DigitalOcean droplets instead of, because for $5 a month you can have just a screaming fast VPS. And so that kind of stuff. So I spent a lot of the last year doing the back end stuff so that I could learn more, the server side stuff, so that I could learn more about that. But the short answer is whatever someone will pay me to do, I would love to learn how to do. And I've gotten, my shortest route to paying gigs has been with people in the sort of small to medium business range that are finally realizing that they should not be on the cheapest hosting if they want reliability, and helping them with that kind of stuff. So, for what it's worth. Other questions? Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate it, and our time.